The clinic went silent when a human arrived with 17 broken bones, and didn't collapse. The emergency bay of the Eloria Station's clinic was unusually quiet for a place that normally never slept. Doctors and medics from dozens of alien species moved with precise, efficient motions, their voices a series of clicks, hums, and melodic tones. Each had seen countless injuries, some so severe that survival was impossible even with the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. Yet today, a whisper ran through the staff, a ripple of disbelief that grew into a wave of tension. A human was arriving. And not just any human, but one with 17 broken bones. Ethan Vance was strapped to a hover stretcher, his body battered and bruised from a mining accident on the far edges of the Viridian Belt. The transporter had barely managed to keep him alive during the long journey. His pale skin was smeared with dried blood, and his breathing was shallow but steady. To the alien staff, every fracture, every splintered bone was a death sentence in progress, and yet here he was, alive. As the stretcher floated into the clinic, several medics stepped back, their multiple eyes wide with disbelief. 17 fractures, a nurse-like being whispered, its voice a series of high-pitched chimes. 17, and the heart still beats. Ethan's eyes opened slowly, revealing the calm determination in his gaze. Despite the severity of his injuries, he shifted slightly, testing his muscles, flexing fingers and toes. "I hate hospitals," he muttered, voice hoarse but steady. The aliens exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Most patients in such condition would either be unconscious or screaming. He was neither. The head doctor, Dr. Kaylor, approached, tentacles tapping rhythmically against the metal floor. Kaylor was one of the most respected medics on the station, renowned for his knowledge of interstellar medicine. Yet even he paused, studying the human with a mix of curiosity and fear. He should be dead," Kaylor said quietly to his assistant. Ethan's lips twitched in what might have been an attempt at a smile. "Apparently humans are stubborn," he whispered. He barely had the strength to speak, yet he spoke. The aliens watched, fascinated and unsettled. The medical team immediately began scans. Advanced imaging devices lit up, casting an array of colored lights across the room. Every fracture, every internal bruise was mapped in excruciating detail. The readings confirmed what the medics had feared. Ethan's bones were shattered in multiple places, his ribs fractured, and several limbs broken in angles that should have caused fatal internal damage. Dr. Kaylor's voice trembled slightly, a sound almost imperceptible but present. "Prepare the regenerative chambers," he instructed. These were high-tech devices designed to accelerate healing beyond natural limits. Even with these, survival for a being with this many injuries was considered impossible, yet they had no choice. Humans were unpredictable, and Kaylor's instinct told him to treat carefully but quickly. As Ethan was moved into the chamber, he gave a faint nod of acknowledgement. His breathing was slow but controlled. Even as the aliens worked on him, adjusting the supports and calibrating the machines, he seemed aware of every movement. He asked quietly, "Will this hurt?" The assistant medic froze. Pain management in alien species was standard, but humans were different. Kaylor smiled faintly, his first real expression of the day. "We will ensure you are comfortable," he said. The chamber hummed to life. Lights pulsed, gentle beams of energy scanning Ethan's body, accelerating cellular repair. The fractures began to knit, fibers slowly realigning. The aliens watched in awe, noting how the human body seemed almost cooperative. Many species' bodies resisted rapid healing, but Ethan's responded immediately, as if understanding what was happening and willing itself to survive. Minutes passed. The staff monitored every reading obsessively. Normally, the regenerative chambers took hours for significant results. Yet within moments, Ethan's fractures showed early signs of stabilization. One of the younger medics whispered, almost in disbelief, "It's too fast." "How is he enduring this?" Ethan's voice cut through the whispers. "I've had worse," he said, though his tone lacked arrogance. It was matter-of-fact, calm, almost mundane. The aliens turned to look at him, worse than 17 broken bones. That was impossible, yet the conviction in his voice made them pause. Kaylor approached the chamber's interface, tapping sequences into the console. His tentacles moved with precision, adjusting energy flows and monitoring cellular regeneration. He had been in the medical field for decades, treating species that could survive radiation, extreme temperatures, and even total limb loss. Yet he had never seen anything like this. Humans were fragile, he had assumed that. And yet here was a specimen defying everything he had known. Outside the chamber, whispers grew into murmurs of awe. Other patients, staff, and visiting scientists gathered at the observation window. Many had heard rumors. Humans were adaptable, resilient, perhaps even dangerous. But seeing one survive injuries that would kill almost any other species left them speechless. Hours passed, though time felt stretched in the sterile silence of the chamber. Ethan remained still, occasionally adjusting his position slightly, testing mobility. He winced at certain angles but did not scream. He spoke occasionally, asking for water, clarifying instructions, or commenting on the alien's efficiency. His humor, quiet but persistent, was a strange relief to the tense atmosphere of the clinic. The alien medics began to compare notes. Some hypothesized that humans might have a latent regenerative capacity, a trait dormant until extreme trauma activated it. Others argued that his mental resilience, the calm acceptance of pain, the focus under pressure, might be amplifying his recovery. Every theory seemed inadequate. Humans were an enigma. By the evening cycle, Ethan's condition had stabilized more than anyone thought possible. His breathing was steady, heart rate normalized, and fractures had begun knitting faster than the regenerative chamber usually allowed. Kaylor paused, tapping his tentacles against the console. "Prepare for manual assessment," he instructed. This would determine whether Ethan could endure physical therapy, something normally impossible for someone in his state. Ethan, hearing this, gave a small nod. "I can handle it," he said simply. Again, the aliens were taken aback. Most species would panic under such conditions, yet he seemed ready, almost eager. The first assessment was cautious. Kaylor instructed medics to gently move a fractured limb. Ethan flinched slightly but did not cry out. He flexed his fingers and toes, tested his arms, and even rolled his eyes in mock impatience. "Is this all you've got?" he joked quietly. The aliens exchanged startled glances. Humor was unexpected. Humor in pain even more so. As they continued, Kaylor noted subtle differences. Ethan's bones, though broken, were not brittle. They seemed to absorb shock differently, adapt to pressure. His body responded instantly to the chamber's stimuli, accelerating repair without any external manipulation. In simple terms, Ethan was healing himself faster than the technology could assist. The observation deck outside was packed. Young medics whispered and argued quietly, some fascinated, some fearful. Could humans be naturally superior in certain aspects? Could this resilience give them an advantage in survival scenarios other species couldn't endure? The implications were unsettling. Night fell over the station, though the artificial lights made it indistinguishable from day. The chamber's hum became a steady, almost soothing sound. Ethan's eyes closed for a short rest, muscles twitching slightly as the fractures aligned. Kaylor studied the readings, noting each anomaly. Every data point challenged the limits of their medical understanding. At one point, a young medic dared to ask, "Doctor, what if he fully recovers?" Kaylor paused, letting the question hang. He had no answer. Every prediction, every calculation suggested partial survival at best. Yet here was a human defying every rule. "Then," he said finally, "we will have to rethink what it means to survive." Ethan stirred, sensing the conversation. "Surviving isn't the same as giving up," he said quietly, though his voice carried across the chamber. The aliens listened. He wasn't just healing, he was demonstrating the essence of persistence. Hours later, when the first signs of full mobility returned to Ethan's limbs, the medics allowed themselves cautious optimism. Yet the wonder wasn't just in his body, it was in his spirit. Each movement, each small gesture, was a lesson in endurance, a reminder that the human body and mind could withstand more than most species could imagine. By the end of the cycle, Ethan sat up slowly, wincing but smiling faintly. "I think I'll survive," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious statement in the world. The aliens around him were silent, some in awe, some in disbelief. For the first time, many realized that humans were not just fragile creatures. They were remarkable, defying expectations, and perhaps destined to challenge everything the galaxy believed about life and survival. The emergency bay, once filled with panic and whispers of doubt, was now silent. Every alien present watched Ethan with a mix of respect, fear, and curiosity. The human had arrived broken, and yet he had not only survived. He had begun to teach the galaxy a new lesson. Never underestimate humanity. The hum of the regenerative chamber had become a constant presence in the Aloria Station clinic. Aliens moved quietly around Ethan, their many eyes observing him with a mixture of fascination and unease. The events of the previous day had shaken even the most experienced medical professionals. A human had arrived with 17 broken bones and had not only survived, but seemed to thrive under conditions that should have killed him. Dr. Kaylor paced along the observation deck, tentacles swaying slightly as he considered the human's unique physiology. He had reviewed the scans repeatedly, analyzed the cellular regeneration, and compared it to every species in the galactic database. There was nothing remotely similar. Humans were supposed to be fragile, inefficient in their healing, and yet here was Ethan, recovering faster than anything the station had ever recorded. Outside the chamber, whispers spread through the medical staff. "He's not just healing," one medic murmured, her voice trembling. "He's adapting, his body, it's changing." Another added, "I've never seen anything like it. It's almost like he's aware of the treatment, like he understands it and works with it." Kaylor's multifaceted eyes narrowed as he listened. That was exactly what he was seeing. Ethan wasn't just passive, he was interacting with the healing process in subtle ways. He adjusted his posture, flexed fractured joints, and even moved his fingers in ways that aligned with the chamber's energy pulses. The human was participating in his own recovery, and no alien had ever done that before. The day progressed, and Ethan continued to show signs of rapid improvement. A fracture in his left arm, previously considered critical, had realigned itself. The ribs that should have caused fatal internal bleeding were slowly knitting together. Even the smaller bones in his hands and feet, shattered in multiple places, began to regain structural integrity. Dr. Kaylor decided it was time for a more detailed assessment. He entered the chamber carefully, flanked by two medics. "Ethan," he said softly, "we need to test how your body responds to controlled movement." Ethan looked up, his voice steady despite the pain he must have felt. "I can do that." The alien medics assisted him gently, guiding his limbs through careful stretches. Ethan winced at certain angles, but each movement was deliberate. He flexed fingers, rotated his arms, and even managed a small step with support. The chamber's energy fields adapted in real time, reinforcing bone density and stabilizing tissue. Kaylor observed the data, tentacles tapping rapidly against the console. "His body is responding faster than the chamber's energy output can account for," he muttered. "He's accelerating his own healing." One of the younger medics, barely out of training, whispered, "Doctor, could he be evolving?" Kaylor paused. The word evolving had weight in their scientific understanding, but humans had never been considered a species capable of rapid adaptation under extreme stress. Yet Ethan's body seemed to challenge that assumption. "Not evolving," he said carefully. "Adapting, humans they endure, their resilience is exceptional." Ethan, sensing the conversation, tilted his head slightly. "Endurance has its limits," he said quietly. "Pain isn't a wall. It's a signal, you can push past it if you want to survive." The medics around him flinched slightly. His words carried a calm authority that was unfamiliar to most species. Pain, for them, was catastrophic. For humans, it seemed to be a tool. As the day wore on, more curious eyes appeared at the observation windows. Aliens from other departments, some high-ranking officials, even a few visiting scientists from distant stations had gathered. The news of Ethan's arrival and miraculous survival had spread quickly. Rumors of his resilience reached the ears of factions who saw humans as weak, and now potentially dangerous. Some whispered fearfully, "If one human can survive this, what else are they capable of?" Others murmured admiration. "Their willpower, it's remarkable." "Perhaps we underestimated them." Kaylor ignored the speculation, focusing on his work, yet even he could not deny the stirrings of something unprecedented. Humans had always been underestimated. They were fragile, slow to heal, and seemed defenseless in comparison to most species. Ethan was a reminder that perception was not reality. By late cycle, Ethan began testing his limits more actively. He rolled onto his side, then pushed himself up slightly, feeling the weight of his body and the constraints of his injuries. He winced, but did not cry out. The medics adjusted supports as he experimented, noting how quickly his body responded to stress. Small muscles, previously thought too damaged to function, began to activate. Tendons aligned, bone fibers strengthened, and nerve signals, once interrupted by trauma, flowed again. Dr. Kaylor watched closely. "He's exceeding predictions," he murmured. "Every model fails with him, his body, it's learning." A junior medic approached cautiously. "Doctor, should we record this? Others may want to study him." Kaylor considered the ethical implications. Humans were not property or specimens. They were sentient, resilient, and capable of understanding their circumstances. Ethan's cooperation had been voluntary, but the idea of turning him into a study subject made him uneasy. "We observe," he said finally. "But we do not experiment beyond his consent." Ethan, overhearing this, smiled faintly. "I'm not a science project," he said. "I just want to get back on my feet." His tone was firm but polite. The medics nodded, impressed by his calm insistence. By the next cycle, movement tests became more ambitious. Ethan managed to sit upright without assistance, then shift weight to his legs. Each attempt was precise, careful, yet daring. The chamber responded, stabilizing weak joints and accelerating cellular repair as needed. Alien observers were silent, some in awe, others unable to hide their fear. A particularly bold medic asked, "Doctor, why doesn't he collapse? His injuries should have caused shock or worse." Kaylor's eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. "It's not just his body. It's his mind. Humans endure through willpower. They do not submit to weakness. Even when their bodies fail, their determination can drive them forward." Ethan tested this statement personally. He flexed his hands, each finger moving independently. He extended his legs, noticing the strength returning to his quadriceps. He shifted slightly, standing with support. Pain flared, but he ignored it. Each motion was deliberate, each gesture a statement. "I am not defeated." Outside the chamber, whispers grew louder. Some aliens were fascinated by this display of human tenacity, others unsettled by it. Discussions erupted quietly in the observation areas. Could humans be a species built to endure extremes? Could their supposed fragility be misleading? Rumors reached station authorities. A delegation arrived to observe firsthand. They were representatives from research, defense, and even political sectors. Their questions were cautious but direct. "Is this species exceptional?" one asked. "Do we need to reconsider their role in interstellar missions?" Kaylor answered carefully. "Exceptional is one word. Adaptive, resilient, cooperative, and persistent are others. This human demonstrates capabilities that challenge everything we have known about survival under trauma." Ethan, overhearing some of the conversation, raised an eyebrow. "I'm just doing what humans do," he said quietly. "Survive, adapt, keep going, that's all." The visiting delegation murmured among themselves, scribbling notes, taking readings, and adjusting their understanding of humans. Ethan's actions, calm words, and rapid recovery were reshaping assumptions. By mid-cycle, the human stood with minimal support. The medics noted that several fractures had fully stabilized. Muscles, tendons, and bones worked in harmony again. The chamber's energy output decreased as Ethan's body maintained balance independently. The human was regaining autonomy faster than anyone anticipated. A young medic whispered almost to herself, "He's more than a patient, he's a teacher." Kaylor's eyes scanned the chamber, then Ethan. "Indeed," he said softly. "In endurance, in resilience, and in spirit, he teaches us more than we can measure." Ethan, standing taller, flexed his arms, then stretched slowly. "You know," he said with a faint grin, "humans like a challenge. Pain is temporary. We don't quit because it hurts." The medics exchanged silent glances. For the first time, many realized that humans' greatest strength was not in physical biology alone. It was in determination, in the ability to face insurmountable odds and refuse to yield. As night approached again, Ethan sat on the edge of the chamber, legs dangling, fully alert and aware. Dr. Kaylor observed quietly, recording data but also reflecting. This human, so fragile on paper yet so unbreakable in reality, was an enigma that demanded respect. Outside the chamber, alien staff began to understand that they were witnessing something rare, a species redefining resilience, not through technology alone, not through evolution over millennia, but through sheer will, cooperation, and an innate ability to endure. Ethan looked out through the chamber's transparent wall at the curious eyes and murmured conversations. He smiled faintly. "Keep watching," he said. "You might learn something about humans yet." For the aliens, it was a moment of reckoning. Humans, long dismissed as fragile, weak, and ordinary, had arrived. and they were teaching the galaxy a lesson in survival, endurance, and the quiet power of determination. News of Ethan Vance's survival spread like a wildfire across Eloria Station. What began as whispers in the clinic's corridors soon reached the observation decks, the administrative offices, and even the docking bays where ships from distant sectors waited. Aliens of every kind, researchers, diplomats, soldiers, and traders, murmured in disbelief. A human arriving with 17 broken bones had survived. Not only survived, but he was already walking with minimal support. The implications sent a ripple of shock through the station. Outside the clinic, a small crowd gathered, observing Ethan through the reinforced transparent walls of the chamber. Some moved cautiously, curious but hesitant. Others whispered in fear, unsure of what they were witnessing. Humans had always been considered fragile, weak, and largely irrelevant in galactic affairs. And yet here was one challenging that assumption with every measured step. A high-ranking official from the station's council approached the observation window, tentacles brushing the glass lightly. "Is this normal?" he asked one of the medics, voice laced with disbelief. The medic shook her head. "Impossible, sir. No being should endure this much trauma and recover so quickly. He adapts. His body learns." Ethan, sensing the eyes on him, pushed himself off the chamber bed and took a careful step forward. The movement was cautious but steady. He flexed his fingers, rotated his wrists, and tested the alignment of his shoulders. Pain flickered across his expression, but it did not dominate it. Every action displayed a mastery over suffering that was foreign to the observing aliens. "Humans are strange," muttered a scientist behind the council member. "They're not fragile, they're persistent. I've never seen anything like this." The whispers quickly turned into debates. Some argued that humans might possess unique physiology, perhaps even a latent evolutionary trait that allowed extreme adaptation under life-threatening conditions. Others feared the implications. A species capable of surviving what should be fatal could be a threat, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Dr. Kaylor stepped into the observation room, tentacles moving with calm authority. "It's not just physical," he said to the crowd. "Ethan's mind is equally remarkable. He maintains focus, adapts, and coordinates with our technology as though he understands it instinctively. This is unprecedented." Ethan overheard the conversation and smiled faintly. "I'm not trying to be remarkable," he said quietly. "I just refuse to give up." His tone carried quiet confidence, a subtle reminder of human resilience. The aliens around him exchanged glances. Words like these were rare in any species, especially one recovering from such trauma. The curiosity quickly attracted more attention than the clinic could manage. Delegations from research departments, military advisors, and even political factions demanded access to study the human. Kaylor, aware of the ethical boundaries, allowed observation but refused invasive testing. Ethan remained cooperative, answering questions, demonstrating recovery, and even participating in controlled movement tests. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the murmurs of awe and fear around him. In the chamber, Ethan began experimenting with his mobility. He shifted his weight from one leg to another, bent at the waist, and tested the limits of his broken ribs. Pain flared with every movement, but he did not yield. Each adjustment was precise, deliberate, and controlled. The regenerative chamber responded automatically, stabilizing weak areas, accelerating healing, and compensating for residual fractures. Every motion was a lesson in resilience. Outside, the aliens watched silently. Some were fascinated, jotting down observations, recalculating survival models. Others were unsettled, recognizing that humans might possess capabilities that no one had accounted for. The discussions grew heated in hushed tones. "If one human can endure this, what about a colony?" asked a senior researcher quietly. "They could survive scenarios no other species could." A military advisor responded with caution. "Or worse, they could resist restraint, endure weapons that incapacitate others, outlast opponents. We need to consider the risks." Ethan, unaware of some of these conversations, continued testing his limits. He lifted his arm fully, rotated his neck carefully, and stretched his legs, each motion precise despite the lingering pain. His movements were measured, almost instinctive. The chamber's energy fields hummed in response, stabilizing bone and tissue in real time. The growing crowd outside began to murmur more loudly. Rumors of humans' resilience had spread to factions that operated in secrecy, groups who monitored potential threats in the galaxy. They arrived quietly, observing Ethan with keen interest. Some were scientists, some were strategists, and some were soldiers. All shared one thought: humans were unpredictable. A quiet commotion broke out when one of the observers dared to suggest studying Ethan as a potential weapon. "Think about it," the alien said. "If one human can endure 17 broken bones and survive, a controlled population could be formidable." Kalor's eyes narrowed, a sharp edge in his tone. "This human is not a tool. He is a sentient being." "We do not exploit him." The assembly paused, realizing the gravity of his words. Humans had autonomy, determination, and intelligence. Exploiting them was not only unethical, it was dangerous. Ethan, sensing tension, spoke again. "I don't want to be a weapon," he said calmly. "I just want to live. That's all humans want, to survive, to keep going." His voice carried a quiet authority that silenced even the loudest critics. The statement was simple, yet it carried weight. Survival for humans was not passive. It was active, deliberate, and unyielding. Meanwhile, in the chamber, Ethan continued to recover. He attempted small exercises, lifting himself slightly, testing his grip, and moving his legs in controlled stretches. Each motion strengthened his body and challenged the observer's assumptions. The fractures, once catastrophic, were knitting faster than anyone expected. Muscles were regaining function, and tendons were aligning with precision. Even nerves damaged by trauma began sending clear signals again. Dr. Kalor noted these developments carefully. "He's exceeding every prediction," he murmured. "Every model, every expectation fails with him. His body is learning, adapting, responding faster than our technology can account for." A junior medic whispered, "Doctor, could he be evolving?" Kalor's eyes reflected careful consideration. "Not evolving in the traditional sense," he said. "He's adapting. Humans endure, they resist, they push past limits that would break others. This is what makes them remarkable." The observers outside continued their silent debates. Some were fascinated, recognizing the human as a living example of resilience. Others were cautious, realizing that a species capable of surviving the impossible might be a challenge or a threat to the galaxy. By mid-cycle, Ethan was moving more confidently. He stood without support, flexed his hands, and tested his balance. Pain flickered across his features, but he ignored it, each movement deliberate and precise. His actions were not reckless, they were calculated tests of capability. Outside, aliens recorded every motion. Notes were scribbled, devices captured readings, and data streamed back to distant stations. Humanity's reputation as fragile and weak was being rewritten in real time, and everyone present felt the weight of that revelation. One young medic, unable to contain her thoughts, whispered to a colleague, "He's more than a patient, he's a teacher." Kalor nodded subtly. "Indeed, in endurance, in focus, in spirit, he demonstrates what it means to survive when all odds are against you." As evening approached, Ethan walked slowly toward the observation window. He looked at the crowd of curious eyes and murmured voices. "Keep watching," he said quietly, a faint smile on his lips. "You might learn something about humans yet." The assembly fell silent. For the first time, many realized the truth. Humans were underestimated. Not weak, not fragile, not ordinary. They endured, adapted, and persisted in ways that defied expectation. And this human standing before them was a perfect example. In the following hours, station authorities convened a meeting. Scientists, military strategists, and political advisors debated the implications of Ethan's survival. Could humans be relied upon for extreme missions? Were they potential allies or unpredictable threats? The room buzzed with speculation, and the name human became a topic of careful consideration across multiple departments. Back in the chamber, Ethan stretched and flexed, testing coordination between his arms and legs. Every movement was controlled, precise, and purposeful. Pain was present, but he acknowledged it without fear. To him, pain was a signal, a guide, not a barrier. Dr. Kalor observed quietly, noting every anomaly. "We are witnessing something unprecedented," he said softly. "Humans possess a combination of resilience, intelligence, and determination that no technology can replicate. He teaches us more than we could imagine." Ethan paused, looking out the chamber wall. The aliens watching him seemed both terrified and in awe. "You might think this is special," he said softly, But this is human nature. We survive, we endure, we keep going. For the observers, it was a revelation. The human before them had arrived broken, injured beyond reason, and yet he had not only survived, but demonstrated a depth of endurance and adaptability that reshaped their understanding. As the night cycle continued, Ethan sat quietly on the chamber bed, fully alert, observing the faces around him. The clinic, once a place of panic and whispers, had become a stage for revelation. A human had arrived, suffered unimaginable injuries, and emerged as a living testament to the strength of his species. For the first time, many realized that humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were remarkable, resilient, and capable of enduring what others could not even imagine. Ethan Vance, with 17 broken bones and an unyielding will, had proven it. Ethan Vance had been on Eloria Station for several cycles now, and the clinic was no longer just a place of recovery. It had become a stage for observation, curiosity, and for some, unease. His presence challenged every assumption the alien doctors had held about humans. They had prepared for a fragile species, one they could treat, stabilize, and send away. Instead, they encountered something that defied every calculation: resilience, adaptability, and a will that refused to break. Dr. Kaylor watched Ethan carefully as he moved about the chamber with increasing freedom. Each step, each motion, displayed not only physical recovery but a level of awareness that fascinated the alien medic. Ethan wasn't merely healing. He was testing limits, understanding his own body, and in subtle ways, teaching the observers around him. "You see," Kaylor said quietly to a junior medic, "humans endure because they refuse to surrender. Their bodies are remarkable, but their minds, that is where their strength truly lies." The junior medic nodded, still taking notes. "I've never seen anyone respond to pain the way he does. It's like he converts it into energy rather than suffering." Ethan, overhearing the conversation, grinned faintly. "Pain is just feedback. It tells you what to adjust. Ignore it completely and you'll fail. Respect it and you can use it to grow." The aliens, still unfamiliar with the concept, exchanged nervous glances. Humans viewed suffering differently. For most species, pain was a warning, a signal to stop or retreat. For humans, it seemed to be a tool. As the day progressed, Kaylor decided to test Ethan's limits further, but ethically. The human had agreed to controlled exercises, and now they were ready to see how far his endurance could stretch. "Ethan," Kaylor said, "we need to assess your mobility and stability under strain." "Nothing dangerous, only measured effort." Ethan nodded. "Understood, let's do it." He began with simple exercises, flexing, stretching, small steps, but quickly moved to more challenging motions. He lifted his arms fully above his head, twisted his torso carefully, and began light squats with support. Pain flared, but he did not falter. The chamber's energy fields adjusted automatically, stabilizing his body and reinforcing healing tissues. Observing the readings, Kaylor realized something extraordinary. Ethan's body was adapting in real time. Tendons, ligaments, and bone fibers strengthened as he moved, anticipating strain before it fully manifested. The regenerative chamber provided assistance, but his body seemed to exceed the limits of the technology itself. A young medic, unable to contain her awe, whispered, "He's evolving his own recovery." Kaylor shook his head. "Not evolving, adapting. Humans can endure more than we predict because their minds drive their bodies in ways we don't fully understand. His will is enhancing the physiological response." Ethan, noticing their attention, smiled faintly. "Humans survive by refusing to quit. You might call it stubbornness, but it works." Outside the chamber, the observation gallery was crowded. Aliens from research, defense, and political departments watched in silence, some in admiration, others in apprehension. They had come expecting a fragile species, but Ethan defied every expectation. The whispers among them had shifted. Humans were no longer weak, they were a force in their own right. Some voices, however, carried fear. If one human can endure this, what happens when they fight? Or when they are exposed to environments that would kill others? A military strategist shook his head. "We must consider them a wild card. They could survive situations we consider impossible. We need to rethink our policies." Ethan, sensing the scrutiny, adjusted his stance, flexing fingers and toes. "I'm not here to be a weapon," he said calmly. "I'm here to survive and learn. That's what humans do. They endure, adapt, and keep moving." By mid-cycle, Kaylor decided to introduce a new challenge. He had prepared a controlled obstacle course within the chamber, designed to test mobility, balance, and strength without risking new injuries. Ethan agreed, intrigued by the idea. The course included low barriers to step over, slight inclines to test balance, and a sequence of movements designed to challenge coordination. Ethan approached each obstacle deliberately. He stepped over barriers, shifted weight carefully on inclines, and adjusted his body with precision. Pain flickered across his face occasionally, but he did not yield. Each motion reinforced healing tissue, improved balance, and demonstrated an instinctive understanding of his body. The aliens observed silently. Each step, each adjustment was recorded, analyzed, and whispered about in awe. They had never seen a being not only recover from near-fatal injuries, but actively enhance recovery through movement and mental focus. Kaylor noted subtle anomalies. Ethan's body was performing what the medical community called self-optimization. As he moved, bones and muscles aligned perfectly, pain signals moderated, and balance improved. It was not purely technology, it was something intrinsic to humans. One observer whispered, "His body is rewriting what we know about survival. He's teaching us." Kaylor nodded. "Indeed, humans endure through determination, coordination, and awareness. His body is remarkable, but his mind guides it beyond our predictions." Ethan reached the end of the course and paused, breathing steadily. "Not bad," he said, a faint grin crossing his features. "You might want to make it harder next time." The aliens were silent, a human with 17 broken bones, already walking freely and now challenging them. The audacity was remarkable. They began to realize that humans had a combination of endurance, intelligence, and adaptability that few species could match. As the cycle continued, Ethan engaged in more exercises. He lifted objects of moderate weight, tested grip strength, and even practiced short bursts of movement, simulating real-life demands. Each action was precise, calculated, and deliberate. Pain existed, but it did not define him. Every time his body felt a limit, he pushed slightly further, demonstrating an instinctive understanding of both his injuries and his abilities. Outside the chamber, murmurs grew louder. Some observers began to speculate. If humans could survive extreme trauma, could they endure in combat, exploration, or other high-risk scenarios? Could they outlast alien species in environments considered lethal? Kaylor remained cautious. "We cannot assume all humans are like this," he reminded the team. "Ethan is exceptional, yes, but his recovery is a combination of biology, determination, and unique circumstances, yet even one human like him challenges our assumptions." Ethan, hearing part of the conversation, said softly, "Humans are stubborn. Endurance isn't rare, it's common. We survive because we have to. That's how we became what we are." The room fell silent. The statement, simple as it was, carried profound meaning. Humans had thrived in harsh environments, adapted to extreme conditions, and endured challenges far beyond other species. Ethan was a living demonstration of that legacy. By the end of the cycle, Ethan had fully completed the obstacle course, standing upright, breathing steadily, and flexing his recovered limbs. Pain lingered, but he was unbroken. The chamber's technology had assisted, but it was clear that the human's own mind and body had done the majority of the work. Outside, the aliens observed in awe, some fearful, others admiring. Ethan had pushed limits that should have broken him, yet he remained in control, calm, and deliberate. They had expected a fragile human, but he was nothing of the sort. A young medic whispered, "He's showing us what humans are really capable of." Kaylor's eyes followed Ethan as he walked toward the observation window, smiling faintly. "Indeed," he said softly, "strength, resilience, intelligence, and will, he is teaching us more than we could have imagined." Ethan looked out at the crowd, his gaze steady and calm. "You can underestimate humans," he said quietly, "but we survive, we endure, we keep moving forward. That's all we've ever done." The observers, from medics to council members, were struck silent. For the first time, they realized that humans were more than fragile beings. They were survivors, innovators, and beings who could thrive where others might falter. As night fell on Eloria Station, the clinic remained illuminated by soft, artificial light. Ethan sat quietly, observing the observers, reflecting on the unspoken lesson he had imparted. His body had healed, but his presence taught far more. Endurance, determination, and the human spirit could not be measured by technology or assumptions. The station had witnessed something remarkable. A human had arrived broken, battered, and seemingly fragile. And yet, through sheer will, careful movement, and the instinct to survive, he had not only recovered but demonstrated a strength that defied expectation. The aliens, once skeptical and cautious, now understood something fundamental. Humanity was not weak. It was resilient, adaptable, and quietly powerful. And Ethan Vance, with 17 broken bones and an unyielding spirit, had shown them exactly what that meant. The Aloria Station Clinic had never seen such an unusual patient. Ethan Vance, the human who had arrived with 17 broken bones, had captivated every observer and challenged every assumption about humanity. The aliens who once whispered in disbelief now watched in awe. His recovery was no longer just a medical miracle. It was a statement, a demonstration of human endurance, adaptability, and unyielding spirit. Ethan had spent days testing his own limits, moving through controlled exercises, engaging with the alien staff, and steadily regaining strength. Every day had been a lesson, not just for him, but for everyone observing. Now, as he stood fully upright for the first time without support, the hum of the chamber quieted. He was no longer a patient in need of care. He was a symbol of what humanity could achieve. Dr. Kaylor approached, tentacles moving cautiously. "Ethan," he said quietly, "you have recovered beyond any prediction. Your body, your mind, it is extraordinary." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm just a human," he said. "We survive, that's all." Kaylor shook his head. "No, you've shown us more than survival. You've shown strength, determination, and adaptability that we cannot measure. You've rewritten our understanding of your species." Outside the chamber, the observation deck was crowded. Scientists, medical staff, military advisors, and even visiting dignitaries watched. The whispers had grown into discussions, some admiring, some cautious. All agreed on one thing: humans were underestimated. Ethan's recovery, his composure, and his calm in the face of extreme pain had left an impression that could not be ignored. Ethan flexed his fingers, rotated his shoulders, and stretched his legs, each movement precise and deliberate. He tested his strength, his balance, and his coordination, demonstrating not just recovery but mastery over his own body. The alien observers recorded every detail, their data streaming to research labs across the station and beyond. One junior medic whispered, almost in awe, "He's teaching us what it means to endure." Kaylor nodded. "Indeed, his body heals, yes. But it is his will, his determination that drives recovery beyond technology." Ethan glanced at the young medic, offering a faint smile. "Humans endure because we have to," he said. "Pain isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. You listen, learn, and keep moving forward." The crowd outside the chamber was silent, taking in his words. They were simple, yet carried profound meaning. A species that could survive extreme trauma, push beyond limits, and maintain focus and calm had changed the perception of humanity in an instant. Kaylor signaled the medics to prepare for a final assessment. This would determine whether Ethan was ready to leave the chamber and stand independently without any technological assistance. The human nodded, ready for the challenge. He began with cautious steps, walking along the chamber floor with no support. Pain flickered briefly, but he adjusted instinctively. He flexed his hands, rotated his arms, and shifted his weight smoothly. Each movement demonstrated precision and control, showing that he had not only healed but strengthened. The aliens watched in silence, some recording data, some whispering in disbelief. They had seen recovery before, but nothing like this. Ethan's resilience, intelligence, and determination combined to create something extraordinary. Dr. Kaylor observed the readings carefully. Ethan's bones were fully aligned, muscles functioning at peak capacity and balance perfect. The regenerative chamber, which had been critical in his initial recovery, was now largely unnecessary. His body had learned, adapted, and optimized itself. A military observer, hesitant at first, finally spoke. "If humans can recover from this, what else could they endure? Combat, harsh environments, survival situations others would die in." Kaylor's eyes reflected careful thought. "They endure because they refuse to surrender. Their minds drive their bodies beyond limits. This is the essence of humanity." Ethan, overhearing part of the conversation, said quietly, "We survive because we have to. That's how humans became what they are. Endurance, adaptation, determination, it's all part of us." Outside the chamber, the murmurs shifted. Some were impressed, some fearful, but all were reconsidering their assumptions. Humans were no longer fragile, weak, or ordinary. They were resilient, adaptable, and capable of achievements beyond imagination. As the assessment continued, Ethan engaged in more complex movements. He lifted objects of moderate weight, tested coordination under strain, and even simulated brief bursts of running. Each action displayed his mastery over his body, his confidence in movement, and his ability to endure pain without faltering. The chamber recorded every detail, but the alien observers were more interested in something else: the human's mindset. Calm, deliberate, and confident, he approached each challenge with focus and adaptability. Even when a sudden shift caused discomfort, he corrected instinctively, never panicking, never yielding. Kaylor addressed the observers quietly. Observe not just the body, but the mind. Humans endure with their will as much as their flesh. That combination makes them formidable. A young medic whispered almost reverently, "He's more than a patient, he's a teacher." Ethan, sensing the attention, gave a small nod. "If you want to learn about humans, watch. We survive, we endure, we keep moving forward no matter what." By the end of the assessment, Ethan was fully standing, balanced, and capable of independent movement. The regenerative chamber's assistance was no longer necessary. He had healed completely, regained strength, and demonstrated a level of resilience that few species could match. Dr. Kaylor stepped forward, a rare expression of respect in his eyes. "You are ready," he said. "You have shown us the full measure of human endurance. Your presence here has taught us more than we expected, and your recovery will be studied for cycles to come." Ethan nodded. "Thank you," he said simply. "But remember, this is what humans do. We survive, we endure, and we keep moving forward." Outside the chamber, the observers were silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause and murmurs of respect began. Aliens who had doubted, feared, or underestimated humans now recognized something undeniable. Humanity was remarkable. Word of Ethan's recovery spread quickly across the station, reaching every sector. Reports, readings, and discussions circulated about the human who had defied expectations, healed beyond belief, and demonstrated extraordinary endurance. Factions that once ignored humans now reconsidered their potential, acknowledging a species capable of surviving situations that would destroy others. Ethan prepared to leave the chamber. With a calm, steady stride, he walked past the observation deck, nodding to those who had watched him. His presence commanded quiet respect. Every eye followed him, noting his strength, his composure, and the quiet confidence that radiated from his every movement. As he stepped onto the station corridors, a silence followed him. Conversations halted, and whispers of admiration and speculation filled the air. Humans were no longer seen as fragile or weak. Ethan's recovery, courage, and determination had rewritten expectations. In private, Kaylor observed from the chamber. "This human, he is more than we thought, not just in strength but in spirit. He has changed the way we see his entire species." Ethan, now walking freely through the corridors, overheard fragments of conversation. Some spoke with awe, others with caution, but all agreed on one thing: humanity had proven its resilience. He paused briefly, looking out at the vastness of the station, the ships docking and departing, the aliens bustling with curiosity. A faint smile crossed his face. "Pain is temporary," he said quietly. "Humans endure, we survive, and we keep moving forward." As the day drew to a close, Ethan's story had already begun to ripple through the galaxy. Reports would reach distant colonies, research centers, and even military outposts. One human had arrived broken, and yet he had emerged unbroken, stronger, and wiser. His survival was a testament to the indomitable spirit of his species. The aliens who had observed him would not forget. They had witnessed something extraordinary: a human who had defied death, endured unimaginable pain, and stood as a living example of perseverance, resilience, and determination. Ethan paused at the exit of the clinic, looking back one last time. The medics, doctors, and observers watched him in silence, understanding the significance of the moment. He had arrived shattered with 17 broken bones, and yet he had not only survived, he had taught them what it truly meant to endure. Stepping out into the station corridors, Ethan moved with quiet confidence. The galaxy, it seemed, was watching, and humanity had already begun to prove that it was a force to be reckoned with. No one doubted it now. Humans endured, humans adapted. And humans, even when broken, refused to be defeated. Ethan Vance, standing tall and whole, carried that truth with him. And somewhere, deep in the hearts and minds of those who had observed him, the seed of a new understanding took root. Never underestimate humanity. The clinic, once silent in fear and disbelief, now echoed with quiet respect. And across the station, a single truth had been made clear. Humans, with their stubborn will and indomitable spirit, had arrived, and they were capable of greatness beyond imagination.